U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has accused Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool of being a race-baiting politician who hates America. What is your reaction?
He's let down South Africa, President Ramaphosa, and himself. He must have been consumed by his own arrogance and hatred of the USA and policies. He, of course, is known for his boundless support of the terrorist organizations Hamas and Hezbollah. You know, he proudly wore the keffiyeh of Palestine, which he bragged about the fact that it was signed by one of the Hamas leaders, who incidentally was assassinated by the Israelis sometime afterwards. He was an enormously inappropriate appointment in the first place. I can't believe that Mr. Minister Lamola recommended it to Mr. President Ramaphosa. Sounds much more like Naledi Pandor recommended.
Hi guys, so greetings out of Birmingham. So Douglas Gibson, really, I didn't even know he was a former ambassador to Thailand, but he's actually weighing in on some of the reasons why the United States actually had no other reason but to expel South Africa's ambassador to the US, Ibrahim Rasool, you know, for really disturbing reasons he raises in this video, where he actually argues that it actually seems that Ibrahim Rasool has affiliations. This is according to him now, but in this interview, he actually argues that Ibrahim Rasool had certain affiliations with some terrorist organizations, and you know, for him to have been the pick for South Africa to represent South Africa and the whole South Africans in the United States was a big error, according to Douglas Gibson. Let's quickly listen to how he breaks down these details here, and I'll be back for some thoughts.
In some reaction, former South African ambassador to Thailand, Douglas Gibson, joins us for some comment. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has accused Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool of being a race-baiting politician who hates America. What is your reaction?
Paul, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to speak to your viewers tonight. Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool is not a hero. He's made his name in the history books as the first ambassador since 1994 to be declared persona non grata. I think in that he's let down South Africa, President Ramaphosa, and himself. Instead of promoting the interests of South Africa, and during a crucial time in the relations between the USA and our country, he's gone out of his way to make personal statements and hugely critical statements about the President of the United States, and also about the big policy of MAGA, Make America Great, which was Trump's big trump card during the election. I think this was a huge mistake. Ambassadors are entitled to have personal feelings, but they're certainly not entitled to attack the head of state and the local policies of their host country. And in doing so, I think Ambassador Rasool was arrogant, and he certainly didn't serve the interests of South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say he's let down South Africa, and of course his remarks come at a very crucial time. And these remarks come after President Ramaphosa, in fact, days after President Ramaphosa responded to questions from MPs in the National Assembly, saying that Rasool was on ground in Washington engaging with stakeholders to underscore the importance of deepening economic ties, cultural, political relations between USA and SA. And it's all gone south. What sort of damage control will be needed? Because we know that we are already, as a country, really just, you know, walking on eggshells.
There's really no excuse for Ambassador Rasool. Not only did he serve in Washington for 4 years, 10 years ago, making him an experienced diplomat, but he also underwent training now before he went off to the USA. And he should know and did know what the lines were. and he transgressed those. And I think that was self-indulgent in the extreme. If he didn't realize the enormity of his transgression, he must have been consumed by his own arrogance and hatred of the USA and policies. He, of course, is known for his boundless support of the terrorist organizations Hamas and Hezbollah. You know, he proudly wore the keffiyeh of Palestine, which he bragged about the fact that it was signed by one of the Hamas leaders, who incidentally was assassinated by the Israelis sometime afterwards. He was an enormously inappropriate appointment in the first place. I can't believe that Mr. Minister Lamola recommended it to Mr. President Ramaphosa. Sounds much more like Naledi Pandor recommendation. But whatever it was a huge mistake appointing that man with his reputation to Washington. Now, what's really important is to decide for President Ramaphosa to decide what steps now. And I think really the first one is to see how we can fix up the relationship as far as possible with the United States of America. Not because we necessarily love them, but particularly because tens of thousands of South Africans are dependent for their jobs on the United States of America. Yeah. For example, under AGOA, we have tariff-free access to the US market for our exports.
Yeah.
America is one of the few places where we actually have a trade balance in our favor. We make a profit. Unlike with China, China makes a profit out of us. And there are apparently about 90,000 direct jobs flowing from AGOA, and there's something like 200,000 other indirect jobs further down the scale. There's 600 companies, American companies in South Africa, and this could, in fact, wreck and ruin our car industry and a lot of our manufacturing industry. And we simply can't afford that given our current economic status.
Yeah.
So President Ramaphosa has now got to do whatever can be done to repair the situation. Emma Powell, the Foreign Affairs or Department of International Relations spokesperson of the DA, has suggested that the GNU should have a delegation going to Washington and attempting to put things right as far as possible.
Yeah.
I think before that actually happens, one would have to know who the new ambassador is. And we're told that President Ramaphosa has had 3 names handed to him of potential ambassadors.
And with those potential ambassadors, pardon the interruption, with those potential ambassadors, what is expected of an ambassador? Because ironically, the gist of Rasool's speech was devoted to advising that South Africa would have to exercise great caution and diplomacy in dealing with US President Donald Trump.
Yes, well, that's exactly the wrong thing to say publicly and even privately. Ambassadors can think what they like privately, but they mustn't do anything that's going to upset the relationship between their country and the host country. And it's a fact that he's been expelled specifically because he attacked the head of state of the United States, plus the policies of that country. And it's just not done. I remember when I was an ambassador, I was carpeted by the foreign ministry in Thailand, and I was told to come in and be reprimanded. And I was reprimanded because South Africa had allowed Mr. Shinawatra, a previous Prime Minister of Thailand, who was a fugitive from justice, to visit South Africa. Now, the Thais are wonderful, and they're the nicest people in the world. They politely and pleasantly told me that this was not on, and privately I went back to our government and told them that this was a no-no. And that was the end of that matter.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't throw me out and let me make history like Mr. Rasool has.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for weighing in on the discussion there. Interesting political climate, so as we put it. But we do appreciate you speaking to us this evening. That was.
Guys, so you've heard it for yourselves. I really don't know. I think whoever will be replacing, South Africa as an ambassador of South Africa to the US, really, I think it's going to be a difficult pick, because now that we have a GNU in South Africa, I really don't know how that whole pick would be. I don't know if the ANC might want to let go of power here and allow a DA minister to represent South Africa's interests in the United States, knowing fully well that we know that South Africa, actually, I think in a previous video I made, South Africa has investments to the tune of, I think, $700 billion in the South African economy. We know that South Africa and this whole AGOA thing is really on the line. The dynamics now would be that if the DA, probably ambassador to the US, is able to negotiate to save AGOA, then probably that glory would be, ascertained to a DA. Would it be ascertained to a DA member or probably the GNU? So I think the GNU now really has to come together to work closely on how to really pick an ambassador with really care now, because right now the whole debate with cutting AGOA and all of that, I think you could hear from Douglas Gibson in this video. He speaks about how further deterioration in SA-US relations would really harm US, their manufacturing in South Africa. That's already being hit by many things. We see ArcelorMittal, what's going on with ArcelorMittal, lots of jobs crumbling. I remember, if you remember my last video with Neil De Beer, speaking a lot about, the Afrikaners not feeling safe in South Africa. There's a major brain drain coming to South Africa, especially if the 67,042 Afrikaners who have actually expressed interest to accept Trump's offer to the United States actually goes through. And we know that these 67,042 have dependents of at least 2 or 3 persons, so the number altogether will be more than that. And knowing fully well that these Afrikaners who are leaving are not the young ones, but these are are not the old ones rather, but these are young minds, young brains that could really help build the country. But now losing all of that value to the United States, I think wouldn't be I think it's going to be a blow anyway. But here Douglas Gibson is actually giving some kind of vibes, really trying to encourage South Africa to be wise now in its pick for ambassadorship, because right now the South Africa-US relation is so at a really terrible low, and any further choice or anyway, whatever it is that the ambassador would have to be picked to represent South Africa, the US has to really come with a lot of wisdom, a lot of strategy, professionalism, and also probably not leaning to any ideological leanings, I would think, because I think one of the problems South Africa is having with the ANC has a lot to do with ideology, the ideology of the ANC. And now that Neil De Beer helps us understand that the ANC is not just alone, it's a tripartite union with COSATU and the South Africa Communist Party, and we are talking about an ambassador in the United States, which is the beacon of capitalism, and as it has been sold anyway, the beacon of capitalism and democratic freedom or democracy, so to speak. So I really don't know how the GNU is going to deal with this one, but I think whatever the pick, whoever will be replacing Ibrahim Rasool would have to really somehow be from a place that really doesn't have these ideological leanings, and is much more a little bit maybe away from the left, maybe more towards the center, because I think this would actually be the basis for fruitful relationship between the US. But I really don't know, honestly, how South Africa will deal with this one. We're still watching the GNU, trying to understand President Ramaphosa's position and how he would deal with this fallout between Ibrahim Rasool and especially in his critique of Donald Trump and the new US government under President Donald Trump. But I don't know, what do you guys think about Douglas Gibson's remarks here about the expulsion of Ibrahim Rasool as South Africa's ambassador to the United States? Share your thoughts, guys, and greetings from really grey, almost rainy Birmingham. But share your thoughts in the comments.